everyone, how's it going? Truman here. Today we'll be covering the least rated anime of this season, Rusted Armors. Some people are calling this the next X-Arm, or even Tesla Note. I haven't seen Tesla Note, but I've heard people don't like the CGI in that. I have seen X-Arm to completion, and I think that is an utter shit show. So to hear another anime reach that level, it's honestly a bit surprising, because X-Arm was really bad.
Hello?
I would like to add that Rusted Armors is based off of a stage play, so we'll see how well it transitioned from stage play to anime. Now of course I really haven't seen the stage play, I've only seen tidbits of it, but my opinion is they didn't do so good. The anime kicks off with his opening, a very bland one at that, and a lot of the shots are actually used from the anime itself, so not many of the shots in the opening are actually original. If I do have to praise the anime opening for one thing, it is their use of color coding for the characters. It's okay. I'm not saying it's really good because it's not, but if there's anything to praise the opening for, it's just that moment. The song is whatever. I myself am pretty picky about my anime opening, so this one doesn't really ring my bell. Now, this is one of those 3D CGI animes that have 2D elements as well. Unfortunately for it, most of the 2D animation is very lazy or minimal at best. So the overall premise of the show is that we have the Magoichi Saika clan, which by the way, there's only one Magoichi Saika that I like from fiction, and it's this one.
What is it that you fear the most? Your own death? Or the shame of defeat? We are the Saika faction! Prepare to face us if you dare!
Oh my god, yes. That's my favorite, Magoichi Saika.
You're next.
Do not presume to think we can be intimidated. We find such threats to be comical.
But the Saika clan here are fighting against a group of enemies called the Conquistadors. And overall, I do like the premise of the Conquistadors coming around and wrecking up havoc in Japan. Even them being like these medieval knights, while our Japanese side is this more steampunk samurai. Anyway, the story opens up with the Conquistadors saying that the Saika clan are around here and that they've been taking out their men. They even call them the Saika demons. This all culminates to a fight between the Saika clan and the Conquistadors, and the Saika overpower them to a massive degree, to the point where I'm like, what's the real conflict then? And the only reason I prop this question up is because I have to ask it when later scenes happen. But we're introduced to our cast of characters, and we get to see a little bit of their clips and their characteristics, alongside their weaponry as well. And so then after that bombastic intro where our main characters are beating the crap out of Conquistadors, we spend the episode doing nothing besides pairing characters together so they can just shoot exposition at each other. Literally most of this episode is just a waste of time. We don't know who any of these characters are. Why introduce 6 characters? Maybe even 7, there's a ninja involved as well? And then immediately break away from the action just to have them sit and talk. You know, exposition is supposed to do many things. One, give information about the world, the character goals, or character personalities. But by God, just because it gives us a personality doesn't mean it should be so boring. We're also made aware of the power system in this world. The characters with special powers have armors. These armors allow them to become superhuman and even deal damage that normal people can't do with such weaponry. Due to the Saika clan owning several individuals with armors, they don't have to pledge allegiance to any lord. Our protagonist has amnesia. Wow, surprise there, right? So the story is now banking on his origins as a mystery. So after all of the character dialogue where the characters are pretty much bantering with each other the whole time, we finally move on to the Conquistadors attacking the Saika village. And my god, does it just make a huge jump. They're getting ready to attack, and then the village is just burned to the ground. Our protagonists are in the village still, or I thought they were. So now things are just balls to the walls. Insane. Village is getting destroyed. People are dying left and right apparently. We don't see any of it because it's a 3D anime. For real, they really don't have that many assets. You'll see the same backdrops over and over and over again. So abrupt pacing aside, we then move to the other characters fighting against the Conquistadors once again. But this time, they're totally outmatched. They're totally outnumbered and outskilled. To the point where I'm asking, Why did the first scene even exist to show they were really competent if in the first episode you were going to destroy that less than half episode later? There's nothing wrong with starting with a really strong opening, but you don't have to make your character seem super competent, because this comes out of nowhere. You don't expect the conquistadors to just be this good out of nowhere in the first episode. Normally that takes some build up. And from here the story just jumps around from character to character, scene to scene, not really telling us how they got to these predicaments. We just have to know they're all pushed in the corner now. So now Magoichi is going through a little bit of a breakdown, believing that this is his fault, that everyone is going to die if he doesn't do something. And again, this all feels like it's happening way too early. This first episode is trying to set up so many things: their power system, Maguchi's backstory, the Psycho Clan, and now the Psycho Clan's village is just destroyed, so it's out of the picture. And even then, we still have more characters to introduce in this one episode. I've said it before, there's nothing wrong with showing characters, but there's definitely a time and place to give them exposition and to flesh out their characters. The first episode is not the time to flesh out multiple characters. It should really be about your protagonist and set up the central themes and elements of the show. Now, since this anime is just an adaptation of a stage play, those things can be set up far easier in song. Each character can get their own verse to introduce themselves through song and dance. But here, there's no charm to it at all. There's no music to draw you in, the choreography is stale and stiff, and the dialogue is boring. So we finally confront the big bad, or at least a high-ranking leader of the conquistadors. And he himself also has an armor, which explains why he's so strong. But it doesn't explain why the rest of his soldiers are so strong. But before Magoichi is finished off, he's saved by a white-haired gentleman, a very flashy one at that. It's unfortunate this isn't the kind of flashy guy I like. But this is the only reason I can think the pacing was so fast in this episode, is because it wanted to introduce this character at the end. Even then, I don't want to assume that someone in the staff thought this is the best way to end the first episode, because it's really not. A nameless character saving someone else. We see him in the opening, we know he's important. Still, this is like such a lame way of ending the first episode. If I can say anything about this first episode alone, is it is cliche upon cliche upon cliche, and they're all so stale. Again, cliches aren't bad, tropes aren't bad, but it's definitely how you deliver them that's important. There's nothing this show offers that any other shonen hasn't offered you before. Especially our new modern shonen. They've done all of these tropes but better, and look better doing it too. The ending, I hate it, is really bad. It's a boring ending with very jarring animation. The lighting is okay in some panels, but sometimes it hits wrong. Now we move on to my favorite part of the episode, Deku and Magoichi's casual Kishu travelogue. Honestly, these are the best parts of Rusted Armors. It's unfortunate because there's a whole 21-minute long episode of an anime, and the best part are 2 minutes at the end. Just 2 minutes of these guys traveling around Kishu. Realistically, the only reason this exists, by the way, is because Taiki Sato is a very popular guy. He's part of Exile, a huge band in Japan. He's also the leader of Fantastics. So having his face at the end of the episode is a huge deal. And honestly, these are the only things I would realistically watch from Rusted Armors. The show itself is just boring. And I find it more interesting to actually learn about Kishu through these guys than the anime. The anime doesn't even teach you anything about it. So by the end of the episode, you at least learn something cool and interesting about the Psycho Clan or about the lands that they lived in. Again, it's just so unfortunate it's attached to this 21-minute long episode. They should just made this. You know, call me a sucker for variety shows. I'm a huge fan of Gaki No Sky, which is a Japanese variety show. You can find the sub stuff out there. Just search up Teen Gaki. I advise you, if you like comedy, if you like Japanese shows, if you like stuff like that, watch Gaki No Sky. Guarantee you won't be disappointed. And if you do, no money back, but at least I'm sorry, I guess. But Gaki No Sky is also the origin of this clip of Matsumoto going, That's from Gaki No Sky. So, I mean, if you've enjoyed that meme, maybe you'll enjoy the show. I feel like they still deserve the recognition worldwide for their efforts. Sorry, I'm supposed to be talking about Rusted Armors. I got totally sidetracked.
アニメのパート2が放送されますようにってお願いしました。まだ1話まだ1話かまだ1話だぞ。
I'm sorry, Taiki, that success probably won't be coming. And then again, it's only based off one stage play, I believe. I don't know how many stage plays of Rusted Armors exist, and I still can't find like the whole thing. I found like clips from here and there, but I haven't found the whole thing yet. So the mysterious man finally saves Deku and Magoichi, and then we're given the scene of Magoichi's regret of not being able to protect anyone. At this point in time, he still assumes the whole village is dead. Spoiler alert, they're apparently not.
部隊名はコンキスタドール。イスパニア語で征服者って意味だ。
So Saburo here lays down the exposition of who the enemies are, the conquistadors, and what they've been doing.
情けねえ。たった一度の負け戦で心が折られちまったか？
What caught my attention is that Magoichi is downtrodden through one loss. Now, understandably, like the biggest loss they've ever had that could have killed their whole village. But I have to agree with Saburo here. You're heartbroken over one battle being lost? They were already fighting the conquistadors for a while now, at least long enough for rumors to start spreading about the Psycho Clan. So you're telling me they've lost not a single one of those fights? Ever?
里が蹂躙され、民が殺されたのは孫一。全部お前のせいだ。
Now, one thing I can't agree with Saburo here is that he says it's your fault your people died. Excuse me, in what world do invaders not get blamed for killing other people? Yes, he'll say if you were stronger, you could have stopped it from happening. In no world is it any of the Psychic Clan's fault that they were killed because they weren't strong enough. I understand during this time period, or even then, this is like a weird mix between this steampunk version of Japan, but regardless, during a warring state, yes, strength would determine value. Strength would determine how you lived in life, but at no point is it his fault. I think most people can get behind that. But here again is where the pacing, or maybe just the structure of the story itself, is messed up. Because now Makoichi goes into the village and sees it's burned down. He blames himself for killing everyone. He was just on the assumption everyone had died. And this is why I say it makes like very little sense, because we were jumping around in the first episode from scene to scene without knowing how the characters got to said scene. All because they had to kind of rush the scenes to introduce Saburo. But if we had seen Magoichi go into the village first, see the burned down village, and then go out and attack the conquistadors, and then lose, and then Saburo saves him, we have a much better pacing, a much better structure. I know at this point he hasn't seen them, but he's already kind of in his heart said they're all dead. I'm not going to say it's like a bad scene per se, because I think anyone would break down and say, oh my god, everyone's dead, the whole village is destroyed. But I feel like the structure could have been way better. Really emphasize the scene and emphasize what Saburo said to him, if we're supposed to take Saburo's words as correct or the right thing to do in this time period. And then the majority of the rest of the episode is spent on Magoichi's flashback. I've already watched episode 3 to 5. Those episodes also are flashback. All of them are flashback oriented. This episode itself is less egregious than the next few episodes because they solely focus on flashback. All of it is retroactive character development, and by the time the flashbacks end, the characters haven't grown much different in the present. There is no present time character development. A majority of screen time is wasted on flashback. I don't think I've ever seen the show overdevelop their characters to the point where it's actually detrimental to the show. A lot of boring scenes of characters just interacting. I understand it's character development, no fault there, but none of it is interesting. I only wanted to mention that because I'm not going to cover episode 3, 4, and 5. It's just literally too much time to cover. Maybe by episode 8, we'd be finished with every single character flashback. Even then, maybe episode 9, because there's 6 something characters. I'm sorry, 7 characters, maybe. There's so many characters, and then the bad guys most likely have to get their own flashback as well. What we're looking at is a story I'm assuming might be full of flashback. Just flashback. And this is crazy because normally you want to develop your characters in present time. You don't want to have all of their character development be done at a past event before the story starts.
皆を救うことはできませんでしたが、女性や子供たちは避難させることができました。
And so now it's finally dropped. At least the women and children weren't killed, or most of them survived. So mainly the men warriors died, except for our main characters. So a bunch of nameless faces went out and died. While important to Magoichi, they are not important to the audience. And with Magoichi seeing that at least some people are okay, but still he has lost some of his village, he cements his goal to become stronger than he was before, in order to engrave his weakness. I guess it's a better goal than just like plain out revenge. So overall, I wouldn't recommend Rusted Armors. I think generally this might be an issue from stage play to anime. Is it really a possible feat without sacrificing what inherently was attractive about the stage play? I'm not sure how long Japanese stage plays last, but I'm gonna make the assumption maybe 2 to 4 hours. Hell, it could be shorter than that. And the only real stage play I've seen are the Naruto stage plays, and that's really about it. And even then, those skip from scene to scene. They're not covering every little thing. So when you have a stage play turned into anime, you have to then fill up those scenes. I feel bad because the studio that made this is their first anime, and they're also making a manga adaptation as well. It's an insanely large project they're trying to make here. I can easily say wishing for a season 2 is that, wishful thinking. Would I call this as bad as X-Arm? No, I think X-Arm had a lot more technical problems compared to this anime. This one doesn't look good either, don't get me wrong, they both look bad, but X-Arm just looked way worse. And I was doing research on what exactly is the problem with 3D CGI anime, and it seems to all boil down to the idea that 3D CGI is trying to copy the look of anime instead of the feel of anime. Now of course there are also industry issues as well, such as 3D animators are more costly, the equipment to render it is very costly, which is why we get products like this where we have 2D character stills walking around, not even walking, because in this one the character stills don't move. I watched a couple of videos that explained why 3D is so hard to do compared to 2D, especially for anime. If I remember to do it, I'll be sure to post them in my pinned comment or in the description. A lot of people assume 3D anime is cheaper to make. It's actually not, it's far more expensive, which is why I don't believe Rusted Armors will get that season 2. I can't even imagine they're going to make their money back. I searched up the Japanese name just to find some scenes of the stage play, and right now YouTube is flooded with people just calling this the next X-Arm, so it's already not getting a good foot in the door. Other than that, I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.